guys, I was really looking forward to doing this video. It's kind of silly because I'm so nostalgic for the way I was in the 5th grade, and my daughter and I are talking about the funny, weird, gross, silly things of boys and girls and growing up. And the 5th grade, it's just such a great time to do it because it's a real low stakes, high yield discussion, right? Because they're topics that we can talk about and grow on those topics and build on them as we go. But honestly, right now, the 5th grade is just such a fun time to begin those conversations. So I'm going to turn the camera around and show you the books that I have, and there will be more because we'll just continue to do this. I don't know, maybe I'll do one a year because it does become more and more complicated. And so here's how I think that this video diverges from other sex ed videos or the discussion of what kind of books you're going to talk to your kid about. And that is that there are 4 things I really want to begin discussing with Morgan. And I already have begun discussing with her some of them. But one is the double bind theory. And if you don't know what that is, then when we're done with the books, I can talk to you about that. The other one is talking to my future young woman here who I'm growing to take active control over her own socioeconomic status. Then there is the creation of one's own image, essentially the who am I and how do I want people to see me or perceive me. And the final one, the 4th one, is the art of negotiation. I've seen too many women in the workplace who simply cannot even negotiate their pay. And for that very reason, their socioeconomic status is directly affected. How they're able to pay for their rent, how they're able to purchase nicer clothes or have their hair done or buy a better car or have better savings is directly related to our young women learning their worth, knowing their worth, and making sure that they're paid appropriately. And I know that's very weighty, right? Because here I am at the beginning saying, oh, we're just doing really fun, cute things for 5th grade sex ed. But these 4 things are topics that I've already started to touch on with Morgan and will continue to discuss as she moves on and gets a little older. Okay, I'll turn you around and we'll look at the books. I have a whole bunch of books here, but this is what I kicked off my sexual education unit study with my daughter, and that is Judy Blume's Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And interestingly, Judy Blume is the author of some of the most banned books in America and stands also as one of the most important writers for girls. I'll let you nosh on that glaring contradiction for a second. But Morgan loved this book, and I purposely hadn't watched the movie because I wanted to watch it with Morgan, and we did. We watched it twice back to back, and we laughed and we cried. It was awesome. So what a great way to kick off sex ed and set an open, friendly tone for what is surely really to be it's a tricky, complicated topic, and oftentimes can be a heated topic. So I wanted to start here, something that we both knew, something that was fun for us. Now, also last year we had done The Good and the Beautiful, Health and the Physical Body for grades 3 to 8. And I had, this is the next workbook because I bought the younger one and then this is the next one for 7th and 8th grades. We loved this. This was an absolutely wonderful book. Really, really fun to do. I'm not quite sure that we are going to do it in the 7th and 8th grade because of another book that we're doing now. So I'm not sure that we'll do this one, but we'll see. But this is a great text. And then from here, we have the story of a cold. So this kind of the sex ed, I'm tying a lot of stuff in, and much of it is health because health of a woman is super, well, anybody is super important. And I wanted to make sure that Morgan knows all about that, about health and human body and sex. And then 50 amazing facts about bones. This is the book that we are using and we really like it. It is really fun. And we've been doing some of the stuff together. Questionnaires talking about we've been rating our health, and here's the table of contents. So if you want, you can pause and look through it. But one thing that I found was really interesting in the right here, your medical record, is talking to your doctor about stuff you might be embarrassed to talk about. And I think that's kind of important. We need to do that. In fact, every time I go to the doctor, unless I'm doing my the actual well woman exam, every time I go to the doctor, I bring Morgan with me so that she can see how I interact with my doctors both male or female, either. You can choose either, and Morgan can choose whatever doctor she wants. Now, she has a female doctor specifically because I want to put as many professional women in front of her. And one of the ways that I can do that is by making sure that she has a female doctor so that she knows she could do that too if she wanted to. But when she comes to my doctor's appointments, she can hear me talk about stuff and know that I'm not embarrassed to talk about stuff, that I use the right verbiage, that I answer the questions without being nervous. And that really is training for me. So we are loving this book. And this, I would say, I guess you could say it's the spine of what we're doing. Now this, to remind myself that not to forget, but there's some discussion that I want to have with Morgan later on about how higher education doesn't necessarily translate into equal pay. And that will be a topic that we will be discussing as she gets older. This one is funny, you guys. I bought this used for our health and the physical body last year. So I bought this one used, and when it came, Morgan and I laughed and laughed because it's a fantastic flip book, right? But I had to recreate this little piece here out of another piece of card because, if you could believe it, this is the most used portion and probably the funniest. And I can imagine a whole bunch of little kids were lifting that flap, just laughing and laughing. And so, but this is a great book. Even today, I mean, even an adult could use this book. It's really, really great. Probably many of you have this book as well. So to follow up, I've got an older kid book for this, but I will show that in just a second. It's too heavy to actually move without moving other books. Let's see. I picked these up, and I don't usually like DK books. I've got this one, and I have the Body Literacy Library. I don't usually like DK books because they're really busy and it kind of distracts me. But this one is not. This is part of health, and it teaches you high intensity interval training and strength training and the proper way to do everything. It walks you through whatever you want. You can pick anything you like. And so while this is the fitness portion, this is the health portion. And here's what I'm talking about, how it's not that busy. But it does walk you through everything. Stress tests. Okay, now I'm piling up here. I need to clean this up. Let's see. I wonder if there's a... Oh, here we go. Let's see. Here's the contents. Pretty basic. Well, this is actually basic, but I don't think the information in it is basic. This is just really handy. We'll probably use this forever. Okay, let's get into the sexual ed stuff. So this is a real straightforward book, the period book, period. It really does cover, it's very specific to girls. It's very specific to a girl's period and what she'll go through, and kind of stays on that topic. So here's the table of contents. And I think, is there another? No, but why did I tab that? Oh, there aren't a lot of books that talk about this, but in the documentary, and I will cover documentaries. I gotta put this here to remember that I will cover documentaries. Sending nude photos of oneself, that's a real thing. That is a real dangerous thing for a kid to get involved with. And this is the only book that I've seen that really talks about it. The other location where you can learn about it, or you can have your child watch and really understand the ramifications of what happens when you send something that maybe is a bright idea for a second and you really can regret it. And that is Childhood 2.0. So Morgan and I, it's a documentary on either Netflix, or I'm pretty sure it's free if you own a subscription. The other documentaries I'll have Morgan watch is The Social Dilemma, The Human Face, hosted by John Cleese. And then there's Christiane Amanpour's Sex and Love Around the World. And so those are the things that I'll kind of integrate along the way that she can learn and understand. Now, here's something I decided to do. I bought both of these books, mainly initially because I was annoyed that there was one for boys and one for girls. I don't know why we need to separate it out. I don't understand that. Why isn't there just one book of what's happening to my body for boys and girls? So I wanted to see if there was a difference, because I think it is equally important to know what is going on with the other sex, just as much as it is to know what's going on with your sex. And so if there was something missing in here that Morgan wouldn't have, and there's information in here, I really want her to have that. I want her to know how the opposite sex is thinking what they're worried about. That is huge, plays into communication and how we deal with each other in the future. So here's the rundown. They're pretty identical. They're actually, it's pretty fair. The one here for girls, I think well, I'll open up the contents. The table of contents are completely different, but overall along the way, although it's laid out a little bit differently, they cover almost everything in a similar way. The difference with the women's or for the girls is, I think there's a whole chapter on bras or something. But again, I mean, why does that have to be separated out? Why shouldn't a boy know that this is an issue that we have to worry about? So you can pause if you want and see the table of contents. And you guys, I don't separate out or do any kind of caveat of male, female, gender, LGBTQ. That's simply, it's a given for me. It's not something we need to worry about or discuss. Morgan's aware that everybody is different and that is okay. So there are things in here and you're smart enough to figure it out, but we don't worry about that because we want to know what everybody is thinking, whether we agree with it or not too, because one of the things I talked to Morgan about is just because we don't understand something doesn't mean we shouldn't have empathy, doesn't mean we shouldn't have curiosity to understand those things. And so here's the boys' book. And I wonder when Morgan, I'm not sure which one Morgan is going to read or wants to read. She can read both or either. All of these are available to her anytime. They're in her room whenever she wants to read them as well. And the illustrations are really quite good. They're very helpful in both of the books. I think every illustration in one is also in the other. So there you have it there. And then this one is such a great, very specific book on what is going on specifically with photos or not photos, but drawings and full discussion. So here is the table of contents here and a really helpful in-depth book about the female genitalia, about our anatomy. And this is something that I think is just really great to have concentrated on. Now, I got this one, this is kind of interesting, because these two books, I forgot to mention, are hugely lacking in the discussion of contraception. And it was kind of annoying because it's actually as one thought bubble across 2 pages in page 200 or something at the very, very back of the book. And I really do kind of think that if you're going to talk about sexual education, if you're going to talk about having sex, you should also, that should be synonymous with a discussion over birth control. This one has an entire chapter. Chapter 8 is dedicated to making and not making a baby. And it discusses all of the different types of birth control, why they're effective, why some are not effective. And what I like about this chapter is that they place the responsibility of birth control on both partners. And this is something that is severely lacking in both of these books. Now, this one's pretty cool. I don't know why it's just a boy's guide. It's got tons of really interesting information in it, and that's why I bought this for Morgan. Let's see, did we do just oh, okay, so there's the table of contents. Yeah. Okay, and then here's one I had bought. It was literally the only sex ed book in Barnes & Noble, if you can believe it. I bought it without reading it because it was the only one there, and I thought, all right, fine, we'll just buy it and we'll see. This is so interesting. This is from an Indian woman's point of view of what it was like to have grown up as an Indian girl and what that meant as an adult as well. So there's interesting stuff in here that I actually want to talk to Morgan about when we do cultural studies. There's discussion of arranged marriages in here as well, which I find very interesting that that's a topic. So we may use this for cultural studies, and I want to keep this on our shelf. Now, here's some sweet things that I wanted to cover because I had shown you that Morgan read Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And so I really wanted to pick up, she read The Thoroughbred, which I showed you in our last Homeschool Monthly update. And I really wanted to pick up some other books that I had read when I was younger. Beverly Cleary, everybody knows her as an author and what she writes about, as well as Judy Bloom. And here's another one because Morgan loved Judy Bloom, the last book that she read by her. And so I got this one just as long as we were together. And I actually don't remember. Yeah, so it talks about the cutest boy in school. But this is a nice, innocent book to read, and a real nice friendship book, which I thought would be really interesting. And then What It Is Like to Date. And I believe this is old. I think this is older than me. So it can't be that racy. They didn't publish a lot of that stuff back then. Yeah, this is 1956. So this should be really, really fun. And then Love Match, which is another Sweet Dreams. I'm not sure which number this is. Do they have, oh, number 10. Yeah, so this would be the 10th book in the series of like 350 or whatever. So some of you wrote in saying, yes, you absolutely remember Sweet Dreams books. And so I got this one from Morgan. It's just a short, kind of a sweet read. Now, I don't ever show you curriculum that I purchase that I haven't used, that I don't like. Because that's a waste of time. I just show you the stuff that I use. And unless I have an accident, or, I accidentally purchased something and I'm using it, didn't work out, and then I'll tell you. But this one really surprised me. So I was wondering what, because we like to do Waldorf here. We're experimenting with that. And I was wondering what sexual education in a Waldorf environment would be. So I purchased this, but I actually don't recommend this book because this is worse than sex ed in the 80s. I came away from this as a mother who has a child and who knows what's going on. I came away from here more confused about what just happened. What are we talking about? And also, I wouldn't recommend this for homeschool anyway, because this is more for, it seems like classroom. It shows like a memo of what you would send to parents to alert them that it's sexual education week coming up and this is what we're going to teach. But there's not a lot of information in here, and we're in 2024. I'm going to give my kid information, and it unfortunately didn't come from this book, even though it was pretty. So that didn't work out. But the last one that I have is Anatomy 360. So kind of keeping in line with sex ed and health was this massive tome. It's huge. I think I have to pan out. When I saw this, and so this is what we had, and kind of cute with a flip through and everything, or a lift the flap book. And then this one. This is awesome. This has everything in it. Just every part of the body that you can imagine. And it does have the reproductive system in here in depth and with really good imagery or images. And so that was also the original reason why I purchased it, so that we could use these images as opposed to a cartoon, although these are not actual, but they're at least less just cartoony drawings. That is also one that we will likely have on the shelves. We will have on the shelves for pretty much forever. Okay, that's the books. All right, so let's talk about what is probably the most complicated one, and that is the strange double bind theory. And if you don't know what it is, anybody can experience it. It doesn't have to be just women, but it's the idea that you have to be two opposing things at the same time. And women really know what this feels like. We know what it feels like to have to be polite and friendly and kind and aggressive at the same time to compete or to be a leader. And frequently, if we're not perfectly riding the line between those two things, we are perceived as either being too weak or way, way too aggressive. And if we appear to be way aggressive, that is probably just normal if a man were to do it. But because we are women, it comes off completely differently. And this is something that cannot not be taught to my kid. She has to be aware of it, because you don't give keys to a car to a kid and then expect them to drive it after they've quickly read a manual. They need to practice it. And because the double bind theory can be so complicated, because the way you react to it can also cause people to perceive you in a certain way. And this kind of brings me over to having, creating one's own image. How will you deal with it? Getting mad is not going to work. For instance, if you come across as too aggressive in the workplace and somebody says, whoa, just calm down there. But they would never have said that to a man. you have to be able to deal with those things. And these things are not fair. They're just not fair. But that's not the point of this. There's a lot of stuff that isn't fair. That doesn't mean you get mad about it. It means you know what the pitfalls are, you see them coming, and you're adept at dealing with them. And in this way, I want to talk to Morgan about the double bind theory, because it can be very frequent. In fact, there's a book on this of women who have run for presidency all over the world, and Maggie Thatcher being one who actually made it, of how the double bind, if you have more than one double bind against you during the presidential race, you will lose the race. So if you come across as too feminine, then you're weak. And if you're too masculine, then you're overstepping your boundaries. This is important for my kid to understand, and it's important to artfully navigate with aplomb, with self-respect, and also with the appropriate demand that you be treated equally without having to say, you should treat me equally. So there's ways to do this without making anyone angry or ruffling feathers. Now, should that be our job? No, but there's reality here. And I want to talk to Morgan about the reality. And the reality is her pay could be affected. I'll give you a really quick example of when I was much younger. I got my first real well-paying job after I had left the Navy as a linguist. And I went in to negotiate my pay after I had received the acceptance that I got in the job. So I went in, and my friend, who is a male, also had a job with them. And so we agreed to meet after lunch and discuss our future employer together, just for fun and to catch up. When we both walked out of there, we were both very, very happy. I had negotiated my pay and I felt really good about it. I felt very good about it. And so did he, but until we got to lunch and he told me how much he was making. And we were exactly the same age. We had almost identical background, almost a very similar degree, undergraduate degree, and we had similar languages, foreign languages. He had negotiated $30,000 more than me, and my heart just sunk. I was so mad at myself. I was so mad. I just thought, I should have seen this coming. This is stupid. And I promised myself that this would never happen again. And it didn't. In fact, a year later, I was looking to work for another company. And before I went in to interview and then negotiate pay, I had done a lot of research to determine how much their contract was worth and how much was therefore available to pay for a person who would be doing my work. So when I went in there to negotiate my pay, I required 50% of what they were making and benefits. Well, I got it, but I wasn't pushy about it. I negotiated really, really well. And you can't just be confident. You can't just be smart. You can't just be kind. You really have to make another person like you, make them understand that you are worth the amount that you suggest you should be paid. And I was so adamant about it in my mind that if they had said no, I wouldn't have taken the job. I had sworn to myself that I would never be paid less than I was worth. Nope. In my career. This is important stuff, you guys, though. And maybe this is weird talking about this on a YouTube homeschool video. I don't know. But we're growing our future women, right? They need to be everything and then some. That's just the reality of it. And I'd rather talk to my kid about the reality of it and the fairness or unfairness of it. But to do so in a way that teaches her that she can do this without stress, without anger. She can do it and create an image around her that causes people to want her to be around, to want to work on projects with them. And that's the art of success. It just is. And sex really does play a role in it. How a woman is perceived in the workplace versus how a male is perceived in the workplace. They're just two different things. And that's just the way it is. So I'd rather be the one to talk to her about it and work on how she's going to negotiate and move further on throughout her life and have a fun, successful life. So it all starts here in the 5th grade with sex ed. All right, you guys, that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed. See you later.